Tonight, on a very special episode of Salamone, it's drunk musicians talking about drunk politics. My guests from the funk soul band Smack Dab, frontman Johnny Johnson. New York City session player, producer, and engineer, Mr. Paul LaPlaca. I'm singer-songwriter Michael Salamone. Thanks for tuning in to this little experiment. And now on with the show.
Thanks for tuning in. We have another great panel for you this week. Joining me tonight, returning to the show, soul funk band Smack Dab's frontman Marc Johnson. Smack Dab has a new self-titled album out that we're all eager to get in the online stores. Hey, welcome back, John.
Thanks for having me, bro.
And first-time guest, New York City recording artist, session player, producer, engineer, Paul LaPlaca. Look for him on the band Andrew Engel's new CD, Defiance, coming this month on Kibble Records. Thanks for playing with us tonight, Paul.
Happy to be here, Mike.
And, of course, I'm Michael Salamone. I'd be flattered if you'd also check out my new double album of songs I wrote called Broken News. Everything's on my website. Thanks. We're a little experimental this week as I've encouraged my guests to drink heavily. We're trying to replicate the great American phenomenon, the late-night after-gig drunken musician political argument. For our non-musician listeners out there, this is when the after-party turns to political discussion and guys start arguing about things they agree about. I myself have been imbibing, so let's get weird. Lately, we've been doing a little rapid-fire game to get our brains and mouths firing, so I'm going to start there tonight while I still can read my cue cards. This is how it works. I'm going to read a topic and then ask you a question on that topic, and then I'll call your name and ask for your response. We call this little game Nanny Nanny Nana. First topic. The Secret Service is still coming under fire this week with so many more scandals coming down the wire, including letting the president onto an elevator with an armed felon. Panel, I'm going to ask you to make up the most ludicrous security issue we'll be hearing about next about the Secret Service. An example might be Ted Nugent target practice in the White House Rose Garden. So we're going to ask you to predict a Secret Service fail. Johnny, do you have one?
I do. In the name of presidential safety, the Duck Dynasty family, led by Sarah Palin, will take over White House security to keep Barack Obama safe and sound in his bed.
Beautiful. Paul, you got one?
Honestly, yeah, he took mine. That's what I was going to say. I heard this story about the Secret Service, and all I could think of was a bunch of inept fucking people at the door at your club letting people in and just being a total pain in the ass. And I'm thinking that, maybe Barack Obama's coming in, and they're saying, you can come in, but you don't have a +1. And Michelle has to stand outside at the White House. Or, them putting magic markers on their hands as they come in. It's like, you can drink. Well, yeah, maybe you can drink. And my final one would be like Donald Trump sitting there and saying, Obama, I need your ID, and you got to give me a real birth certificate, the real one.
That's the musician answer right there for sure. I'm just picturing like that bouncer you never really get at your shows that you give the guest list to and he can't even read anyhow. I think this year the Secret Service is planning on having Al Qaeda plan the annual White House Easter egg hunt, so that should be interesting. Speaking of terrorist groups, I've had a hard time hearing about ISIS in the news without thinking about the cartoon show Archer, where they all work for a spy organization named ISIS. So, panel, I'd like you to think of another cartoon reference that could soon be adapted by a terrorist group. An example might be Double Agent Secret Squirrel and Morocco Mole, or renaming weaponized drones as the Mystery Machines. Paul, do you have a good cartoon reference for us?
Yeah, I was thinking, it's an easy transition here to have them possibly adopt something from Bob's Burgers because, the mustache and the back hair. And so instead of, like a burger of the day in Bob's Burgers where he puts up on the chalkboard a little play on words, maybe the terrorist organizations could have a bomber of the day, whiteboard chart listing who would get assignments for that day. Like, you're simply the vest bomber Ahmed, and what would I do without shoe bomber Mahmoud not Mahmoud? And I'm Machete Chase, and you're not Fatouche.
That's so racist.
John, why don't you take a stab at that one?
Okay. I'm gonna stick with the whole Scooby Doo thing, where the ISIS leader is unmasked, and you find at the end of the show, and you find out that it's actually Osama bin Laden still alive. And then you unmask him, and it's Gaddafi, and he's still alive. And he's unmasked, and you find out the whole time it's Ben Affleck.
And he would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those crazy kids.
If it weren't for the meddling fucking kids. Yep.
Just as long as Ben Affleck gets the chair at some point, then we're doing fine. Whatever kills that guy is good, fine with me.
I'm Batman.
I suppose a properly timed laughing gas attack could be remembered as Hanna-Barbera's Laugh Olympics, but moving on, next up. Republican Party was busted this week for using stock photography in a campaign to highlight black Republicans. Now, maybe they couldn't find any other than Herman Cain, but what they did is they wrote fake bios for stock photos that they bought the rights to of black folks and then captioned them with, "I am a Republican." So, panel, I want you to come up with another type of stock photography that we might see the GOP captioning with "I am a Republican." An example could be like kittens wearing bow ties, "I am a Republican," or pictures from anti-bullying campaigns. John, let's start with you. Do you have one?
Yeah, I'm thinking a stock photo of Mr. T from back in the A-Team days, and instead of pity the fool, it's a pitiful fool.
Paul, you're up.
Well, first of all, I am shocked, appalled that the Republican Party lied to us about something like that, because it's just not something that I would see them doing. But in the future, I would say, considering how epically they've failed with courting the Latinos, I would foresee an ad campaign with, some stock Juan Valdez picking coffee beans and smiling, and "Yo soy un republicano," or the Taco Bell Chihuahua saying, "Yo quiero Marco Rubio, pero más agua," or Speedy Gonzalez saying, "Don't let the liberals slow you down."
I think I want to see them using stock clip art instead of photography. Like, remember that talking paper clip from the 90s? Imaginary creatures. Yeah, imaginary creatures from a long time ago. That's
you mean like the rosters of their voting rolls, like who voted, like those imaginary creatures? I'm sorry. Was that too political?
No, that's why we're here. In prep for last week's show, I researched that I'm 100 times more likely to get shot by a cop than I am to get Ebola. So let's talk cop talk. We've got a black guy and a dude who's had heavy metal long hair most of his adult life. Plus, we're all musicians, so we've all been out late putting expensive equipment into shady-looking vans. So I'd like to end this segment with everybody telling a story about being hassled by the cops. Paul, do you have one?
Yeah. How much time do we have for the show?
We'll try and make it pretty quick. We want to talk about some other stuff.
All right. So a couple of years ago, I'm driving to the DMV to take care of some outstanding tickets. And, I wait in line. It's a nightmare, as everything is. And you get up there, and they say, you can't pay for these here. I'm like, well, why not? And it's like, well, these are moving violation tickets. They're different, and you have to go to this place here. But what happened is they were issued in Farmington. They say they're issued in Farmington. You have to go there, and you already you missed your court date, so you've been held in contempt of court, and your license has been revoked. And I'm like, what the? You gotta be kidding me. So I'm like, all right. So I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna take care of this, but I'm not gonna go to Farmington. And I'm thinking Farmingdale, which is only half an hour away. Farmington's near Rochester, so for me that's like 5 hours away. So I'm driving home. I'm really upset, trying to figure out what to do. And I pull off the side of the road, and I'm gonna go see Spider-Man. Spider-Man's coming out right now. I'm gonna go see a movie. So I pull off the throughway, and I go on the service road right behind it, and I get right in line behind this cops thing, and the lights are going, and I'm trying to figure out a way how do I back out of this, because I just found out my license was revoked. And I was like, son of a bitch, here I'm stuck. And they come up and they grab, my license and everything. And I know what's coming. And it takes like 5 minutes to come back to me like, sir, you realize your license has been suspended. I said, yeah, I said, I just found out 5 minutes ago. I just came from the deal. Would you step out of the car, please? And I was like, what? Step out of the car, please, sir. So I step out of the car, turn around, put your hands on the hood. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. Put your hands around your back. And I turn into full-blown, indignant white man. Why is this necessary? I don't understand why this is happening to me. Watch your head, sir. Why do I need to be restrained? I don't understand. And I'm in the back seat of a cop car, and if you've never been there before, I'm 6'1". There's like 6 inches back there, I swear to God. And I am stuffed in the back there like a Twinkie up someone's nose or something. And I'm just crammed in the back there, and I'm getting a panic attack, and I'm thinking to myself, this is why guys on cops kick out the window. This is why I'm freaking out. And finally he comes back. He's like, well, sir, it seems like your story's checked out. I'm like, oh, thank God you can release me. He's like, no. You got to go to jail. We've already put you in the system. And I was in jail for like 8 hours that day, and it was the most horrifying experience I've ever had in my life. And I'm not going to go into details.
John, what about you, man?
Oh God, I can't honestly, and I'm the black guy on the panel. I have actually met more cool cops than I have met like dick cops.
Move to LA.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, I've lived in New York. I've lived in Chicago. I've lived in Memphis. I've lived in a lot of bigger towns and stuff. But I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, when I was I guess I was a junior in high school, and living in Jamestown, I got picked up one night walking home from a friend's house that was, like maybe a quarter mile away. But, it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'm walking home with my gym bag, and cops just stopped me. I'm walking down the street. I was wearing my varsity jacket. And I didn't have my ID on me, so they because I didn't have my ID, and they cuffed me, put me in the back of the car, and then started driving away from downtown, and started driving out towards the country. And of course, I'm being a black kid, and this is the '80s, I was shitting my pants, and they're cruising on. I'm in the cuffs. In the back, and what they did was they screen tested me. And I don't know if you know what screen tested is, but what they did was they got going about 30 miles an hour and then punched the brakes and smashed my face smashed my face so that when they punched the brakes, of course I can't restrain myself, and my face smashed into the screen along the back of the front seat. And they turned around afterwards. They turned around as they were driving back. The guy driving looked at his partner and said, oh, he looks like he ain't doing so good back there. And I had blood coming out of my face, coming out of my nose, my mouth, and he goes, oh, no, he doesn't. He must have fallen down before he picked him up. And they drove back to where they picked me up, let me out of the car, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah. I was 16 at the time, actually, 16 years old.
That's not funny.
Wow.
No. But like I said, but honestly, I've believe me, I've been in a lot of situations where I have gotten off for things that I probably should have gone to jail a bunch of times where I didn't since then, but it's still that still kind of sticks in my craw.
Well, as long as the karma works out in your favor.
I've had a lot of positive experiences with police officers as well, but I've had a lot of bad ones too. I think the funniest was when the Chautauqua Police Department officer, Teddy Hines, confiscated 2 bottles of Kahlua barbecue sauce from me because I wasn't 21 years old and old enough to have those barbecue sauces. The most tragic, though, I was smoking a hand-rolled, like, drum tobacco cigarette, and a cop pointed a gun in my face telling me to drop the joint. So both cases, the officers were grossly misinformed about the substances in question anyhow. That's our game, nanny, nanny, na-na. Let's move on, and let's drunkenly talk politics. I think this is a good time to do a social. Gentlemen, thanks for drinking all evening and joining me. Let's have a little bit of a beverage, and we'll move on to the second half of the show. One of my favorite people on the planet, Dr. Cornel West, has been the critical voice of the president on the left. And today, excerpts from his upcoming book called The President, The Black Face of American Imperialism. I'm going to try and read this quote while my eyes still work. Dr. West wrote, "The Obama presidency has been primarily unwilling to concretely target the new Jim Crow, massive unemployment, and other forms of poor and black social misery." He talks a little bit about how he's the drone president, how he's the Wall Street crony president. So I'd like to frankly speak about the president with our drunk musician political panel. And I guess we'll start with John, because as a black American, he likely has a different perspective than Paul or I might. John, anything? I know you read that article because I sent it to you. Anything you want to say about Dr. West's criticisms of the president?
Absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, I'm mixed race, just like the president is. My mother's white, my father's black. But obviously because of the tone of my skin, I'm recognized as black by people on the street, of course, and socially in this country. And so you're right. It does give me a different perspective. And for people that think that doesn't count for something, believe me, if you spent 24 hours as a black man in this country, you would certainly understand that it does give you a totally different perspective on things. But I voted for Barack Obama. I'm an Obama supporter. I don't support all of his policies by any means, but I agree with a lot of what Cornel West was saying. I think, and I don't know if it's just the climate in Washington D.C. now, or if it's just just what is just ingrained in American politics is that you can't, once you get there, you can't rock the boat. But I think I honestly don't think I think that Barack Obama probably came into office and had a lot of ideas and a lot of plans about what he wanted to change about the complexion. Sorry for the pun. Of America, of how the American government approached foreign affairs and domestic affairs, and I think, but I'm not sure if it's once you get in there that you are almost forced to kind of come more to the center and kind of toe this line of, well, this is just what we do as a government, or as a country. This is how we handle things. But I'll tell you what, I think he is totally let down, not just people of color, but people, the underclass in this country. I don't think that he is, and I know that he faces a lot of obstruction from Congress and from and even and from the Supreme Court. But you have, at some point, especially once he won a second term, I fully expected him to finally come out and just say, you know what, I'm coming out of the booth and I'm just going to go ahead and tell it like it is and call and just really call him like I see him. As far as the foreign policy, I am not a fan. The idea of dropping bombs on people to try to maintain peace is absolutely insane to me. War has never brought peace, ever. Ever. And it drives me nuts because it seems like it just seems like the same old, when I was really, really hoping for a change in direction and a change in attitude that I hoped that he would bring. And I just don't see it. I first I'll come to fruition. The healthcare thing was one.
For me, it's like hearing him say something like the black face of American imperialism. It doesn't really make sense to me because for me, I'm 48 years old right now. What's coming up in my lifetime and what I've seen from my first time that I was politically aware was during the Reagan presidency and a little bit during Carter. But you look at the history of our country and what we end up doing, and it's a pendulum swing and it's smoke and mirrors. And we have an illusion of democracy, we have an illusion of choice in this country, and really what happens is there's a machinery at work that allows us to believe that we get our way for a chunk of time and then the other side gets their way for a chunk of time. And that's the problem for me that I'm saying. It's like Obama is more of a face on this pendulum arm swinging out that, oh, hey, we had a black president and we had this going, but it's like, but nothing really happens, and the machinery that's really at work is the money that is spent on us buying war toys and equipment, and all the money that gets spent on that is driving our political process and everything that we do. Because there's so much money there, and there's so much money that we're not allowed to see. A lot of these budgets are secret. A lot of the money that gets spent is secret. But what we do see, like this last thing into Syria when we're fighting ISIS here, they threw out, was it 40 or 50 Tomahawk missiles? I can't remember the exact number. Maybe it was 47 or something. But they're like 2.5 million or in that neighborhood per missile. Now, you think about that just for one military action. How much money is spent, and who gets that money? $2.5 million for one shot. Somebody out there is pocketing a lot of that money, and that buys influence. That's my problem with what we do in the world. And then, then they turn around, they sell it to you like patriotism, they sell it to you as support the troops, and you can't question these things. You can't voice these things out loud because somehow you are besmirching the honor of the people that support our country and fight for us. But really, it's the money that drives it, and it has nothing to do with real conflicts in the world. We're always on the lookout. We're always on the lookout for the next villain, and it's always in terms of the next madman. It's in terms of the next evildoer, and it's always that direction, and it will never end. And it's a perpetual state of fear, and we're constantly fighting somebody all the time, and that money keeps on getting funneled in to that machine, and that's what's running the country. It's not our presidents. It's not black and white. It's not left or right. It swings back and forth on purpose, so you think you're getting your way for a little while, but it always feeds. That money is what controls everything.
I've always called it the professional wrestleization of American politics. We've always got to have a good guy and a villain. But why do we spend $1 billion to get a job that pays $400,000 a year, which is the presidency? But with that said, I believe this president has tried to do a lot of good and could have done more if, like John said, wasn't deadlocked by Congress at every turn. But with that said, I'm disappointed in the drone attacks, that he's not cracked down on the corporate takeover of this country, that he's continued to attack civil liberties, which was started under Clinton and perfected under Bush. There's little investment in public infrastructure, which is a real problem in this country. I was really hoping for the New Deal, like, I don't know. I know he's doing better than McCain or Romney could have done for us, but he's not the president we need right now to save America. Anyhow, with that rant done, we've got about 4 minutes. So I think real quick, we talked on like money in politics, and we talked a little bit about civil rights. I want to go back to civil rights. Today, the courts, by refusing to take cases, in effect legalized what we would call gay marriage, but marriage for all people in this country. But with things like Ferguson still in the news, my question to you both in this last couple of minutes we have together is civil rights better or worse than, say, 1980? John, why don't you go on that one too?
I'm going to say worse than 1980. Mainly because of the backlash that we've seen about over civil rights. The marriage equality is that for me, I think is a complete, absolute joke. Anybody, if you're against same-sex marriage, don't marry somebody of the same sex. It's not going to hurt you. It doesn't change anything in your life. Leave people the fuck alone. But as far as the voting rights and things like this things have been since the Reagan administration. Things like this have been rolled back systematically, over and over and over. Union busting has been back in style since 1980. Everything, the human rights and civil rights in this country have been rolled back significantly since 1980, from where we had fought for years, for 30, 40 years, since the end of World War II up until 1980, to get somewhere in a positive way, and ever since then I've just seen it rolled back, and it breaks my heart. And I'm down to do anything I can to fight it.
Amen. Paul, I'm going to ask you to jump in as quickly as you can on that same topic.
Absolutely. I think it's worse just in terms of institutionalized racism and prison systems as a private enterprise. The fact that you have customers now instead of convicted felons, that you want them to come back because it is part of your return customers. I think that has a huge detriment on society and the people that don't have an ability to fight back. There was a time when Paris Hilton was arrested several times for cocaine possession, and I was thinking, if she was a black man, there's no way she would be out on the street. And it's because the people that don't have the resources to fight back, they disappear and they become part of this underground cycle of just violence and destitution. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, that once the prisons became for profit, that you saw this happen, and the explosion of our prison population, and it's mostly black men. Young black men are at the end of the stick, and it's appalling. We're way worse off than we were.
I wish we had more time because we could go for a while longer, but that's our show this week. I think I'm going to encourage my guests in the future to drink beforehand. But big thanks to my friends for joining me. Big thanks to John, Marc Johnson, and Paul LaPlaca. I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm Michael Salamone. Please visit michaelsalamone.com and click on podcasts for archives of the show, available on iTunes and Stitcher. Details are all at michaelsalamone.com. But please, most importantly, be good to one another, and good night.